Okay, so our next presenter is Renee Scott. A little over 5 years ago, Renee Scott was introduced to lino block printing. Renee fell in love with the process and soon afterwards started her own small textile business, Brindy Linens. Her main product is tea towels made from hemp and organic cotton blended fabrics, which she uses to showcase her original hand-printed designs. Renee.
Hello everyone. I have a bit of a funny confession. When Susan called and asked me to do this, I said, yeah, okay. And she said, and you're going to use PowerPoint? And I said, of course I'm going to use PowerPoint. Afterwards, I'm telling my husband, and he said, do you know what PowerPoint is? I'm like, well, yeah, you write down the main PowerPoints of things you're going to talk about. And he's like, no. But I did it. So, this is my disclaimer. What I'm about to tell you is by no means the correct way of going about starting a business. It is simply, and sometimes not so simply, the way in which I came to run a small business. In 1998, after graduating high school, I enrolled in a 3-year general studies program at Kwantlen College in British Columbia. Having taken design theory, color theory, painting, and drawing for 1 year, I left. Not really sure where I was going, what exactly I wanted to do. What I knew for sure was I wanted to have a family one day, and I wanted to have a career that I truly loved and put my creativity to work. So, I ended up working at Starbucks, in a gift store, as a telephone operator, and at the front desk of a hotel, a sales girl in a bridal and tuxedo boutique. For years, I apprenticed as a hairdresser. I blame the movie Steel Magnolias for that one. Then I moved on to being a personal nanny, and lastly, a cashier at Sobeys. Yikes. Fast forward a few years, and in amongst all those other jobs, I had gotten married, moved to Newfoundland, and had 3 lovely children. At that time, they were the ages 6, 4, and 2, and a lot of pets. We had just moved back to town and were on our 3rd house. I was a stay-at-home mom and was still searching for something. I wanted a way to contribute to the household income without putting my children in daycare. Still searching. I tried making gift cards and selling them at flea markets. I never sold one. I painted murals on children's bedroom walls. My babysitter made more money than I did. I made homemade cookies and sold them to coffee shops and offices downtown with a baby strapped to my back and dragging a toddler behind me. I got into making jewelry but was unable to obtain the schooling necessary to improve my skills. At this point, from a creative point of view, I decided to wipe the slate clean and start over. So, I made a quilt. I was taking an evening painting class with Di Dabinet. I had to make a Christmas present for my sister-in-law, and I wanted to dye and paint on fabric. Di introduced me to linoleum and directed me to online stores where I could order and paint. Order the paints that I needed. Research, do it. If I was doing a craft or knitting with friends, I would be constantly thinking, how could I turn this into a marketable item? And I drove them crazy. I started reading the Newfoundland Dictionary in search of a company name. I would look up the most popular Etsy shops and research what their top selling items were and how many items had they sold that year. I was obsessed with reading articles like How to Quit Your Day Job and stories featuring successful craftspeople. A side note, I consider anyone who meets their goals, whether big or small, as successful. Doesn't mean, owning a massive multi-million-dollar business. If it's, I get to pay my rent and buy groceries, and that's awesome. So I started brainstorming. I knew I liked to paint, carve and sculpt, work with textiles. I knew I wanted to create a marketable item, an item of high quality, an item both artistic and practical in use, an item that reflected Newfoundland culture. Eureka tea towels. I ordered a bundle of wholesale tea towels on eBay. They were so poorly sewn, I had to resew most of them. I started carving out images in linoleum and block printing by hand onto the fabric tea towels. I signed up for 2 evening classes at Anna Templeton. One was an introductory course in embroidery taught by Susan Furneaux. The other was a design theory class taught by Catherine McCausland. Yes, what I learned took away from the embroidery class. Embroidery is not easy. I'm not particularly good at embroidery. I have a much greater appreciation for my great-grandmother's work. The next step towards starting my business, what I took away from design theory. From patterns of moss growing on a tree to the newest Vogue magazine, there is inspiration everywhere. Don't just look at the big picture, look at all the little pictures that it takes to make up the big one. Startup costs. How did I fund my startup costs? Honestly, a magic bank statement arrived one day that said that I was pre-approved for a line of credit. As a stay-at-home mom, I made no money. My husband told me not to take it, so of course I did. I have to say I'm very lucky to have a supportive husband. I help out where I can, but mostly the money I make goes right back into my business. What I should have done, in big capitals that I have written here, is looked into government funding, looked into qualifying for grants. My business has grown significantly, and because I did not research how to start a business, I am still paying off these startup costs today. So beware, and remember, knowledge is power. The pros to registering your business. By becoming sole proprietor and receiving an HST number, it made me feel like my business was legitimate and was going to be a lasting thing. I wanted the bank to take me seriously, and it has enabled me to write off a lot of expenses. The cons, the bank told me I needed an HST number to open a business account. I was later told by an accountant that this was not true, but then it's sort of too late. Business accounts have higher fees, and you have to pay taxes. Like, I registered long before when you make 30,000 or before you make that amount. So there's always positives and negatives. Point in the right direction. Susan Furneaux looked at my work and encouraged me to submit it to a group show being held at Devon House. It was centered around the trigger mitt pattern, and I had just carved that image. Susan also gave me the contact info for EcoWise, a local company that has become an integral part in the running of my business. EcoWise is a locally owned and operated company committed to creating high-quality, environmentally friendly products. The company is dedicated to improving the quality of life for adults with mental illness by providing employment opportunities in a caring and supportive environment. I would not be able to run Brindy Linens without EcoWise. When starting out, I quickly realized I did not have the time or facilities to cut and sew all the towels I needed. We have an awesome working relationship, and I am so grateful to the owners, Nikki and Stefan, and all the ladies who sew my products. My business literally sits on 2 women, really, kind of 3. Actually, yeah, in the cutter, and I don't know if they just decided that it wasn't worth it for them. They take a bus every morning in all weather, and they actually lose out in ways by going to work. They would make more if they just stayed home and didn't see anyone and didn't do anything. And I can't thank them enough. So, branding. From the beginning, I had a clear idea of what type of branding I wanted Brindy Linens to have. Clean, bright, and vintage. I searched for over a year to find just the right image for my poster girl. Graham Blair, one of my fellow crafters, put it all together for me. He added the sky and added texture so it looked like the image is made of fabric. He also helped me find the perfect font. Another good friend, Stephanie Smith, she's a potter, then took what Graham had designed and put it together in a simple website for me. Tip: make friends with at least one good graphic designer and treat them well. Farmers markets and craft fairs. In 2011, I started having a table at the St. John's Farmers Market and taking part in local craft fairs. This was essential in the growth of my business because it helped me determine what my customer demographic is, mainly women between the ages of 20 to 70. So the Craft Council of Newfoundland and Labrador Christmas Craft Fair. My first year taking part in the Christmas Craft Fair was 2011. I had to solicit my sister-in-law and her mother to help me with production. I paid them by piecework, and they helped me with printing and ironing towels. This was before I purchased my heat press, and it took me 3 minutes per towel to set them. So her living room looked like a sweatshop. They watched a lot of daytime TV. Being accepted to Kitty Vitty Plantation. By 2013, I was beginning to experience growing pains. I wanted out of my basement and to have a separate workspace of my own. When I was accepted into Kitty Vitty Plantation, I thought I died and gone to heaven. My daughter was only 4 at the time, and she would come with me every day to work, quietly watching the others work and creating her own masterpieces. She told me she wants to be a potter, but I've told her she has a tea towel empire to run. I love the sense of community and being able to bounce ideas off of each other. I learned a lot from guest speakers who would share their personal experiences in craft industry. Being at the plantation also introduced me to the world of wholesale. Regardless of the trade, if you talk to someone who makes a living by creating things they love, you will always be able to draw inspiration from their stories. One of my favorite people that came was actually, he was a wood carver. And I was like, I don't work with wood, I don't carve. And his experience in selling and doing wholesale, I learned the most from him. Nothing to do with what I do, but still, it all helps. In regards to the public, it's not always easy creating with people looking over your shoulder and asking questions all the time, but you have to get over it or you lose your mind. In regards to studio space, it showed me that if you're really organized, you don't need a massive amount of space to produce a body of work. I was given the opportunity to take accounting and business courses and attend seminars. Sometimes I think it's hard being part of a larger group when you are still trying to figure out who you are, because the group as a whole takes a lot of time and energy to keep it running smoothly. I really don't know how the directors of the Craft Council and Anna Templeton Center keep it all going. After 2 years, I began to feel like I needed a change. I was nervous, but I felt it was time to leave the nest. I feel extremely lucky to have been part of the plantation. It was a wonderful experience and opened doors for me that otherwise would have been missed. I have to say, since leaving, I still miss the daily support of my fellow craftspeople. What can I say about wholesale? When I wrote this, I should also say I'm very stressed about filling wholesale orders right now. So it pays the bills and it gets your name out there. For the past few years, because of my children's ages, I had my sister-in-law helping me with production 4 days a week. Since moving my studio back home this summer, I've been trying to do it all myself. And I'm beginning to realize I'm trying to cram 2 full-time jobs into one. The thing about wholesale is it's a catch-22. The more money you make, the more money you have to spend, vice versa. Sometimes I feel like a cat chasing its tail. I haven't spoken much about my Etsy shop I opened a few years ago, only because I don't put that much focus on it. I get sales from time to time, but really what I found is it brings retailers to me from across North America. Currently, I'm in over 40 stores across Canada and a few in the States. When I left the plantation, I moved my studio above Flower Child at 116 Duckworth Street. It was a good size, about 16 by 16, and I could work quite well there. I felt Brindy Linens would do well above the toy shop because we both have an eco-friendly outlook, therefore attracting the same type of customers. I advertised in the newspaper and a local magazine. I'd used my sandwich board when it wasn't too windy, and I was on an NTV News, but the people did not come. I do think that there is some truth to the fact that businesses above street level will struggle. 90% of my business is wholesale though, so I wasn't too concerned about traffic. Time to step back and reassess. I'm in my 5th year of running Brindy Linens, and I am still trying to figure it all out. I had no idea how much work this was going to be when I started out. All I was thinking was, I want to make stuff and sell it. It wasn't until a friend asked me, do you want to make stuff or are you wanting to own your own business, that it struck me I did. This past spring, I looked at my finances and realized something has to change. My business makes good money, but the cost of running it is very high. My goal is to figure out the best way to lower my overhead costs so that I can actually start to make a decent profit. My children would soon be out of school, and I wasn't looking forward to the extra cost of full-time summer camps. So after almost a year of being downtown, I made the decision to move my studio home and take over the sunroom that is attached to our garage. That's not anything illegal, by the way. That's lots of bags of lavender. That I use for my sachets. Having my studio at home has actually been very nice. My children are old enough now that I can pop outside whenever I need to and work on orders. My only problem is ignoring the dishes and laundry that keep calling me back. Never a dull moment. While all of this was going on, some of you may have known my husband and I put an offer in on the North Street Cafe in Brigus. It was originally a general store and had the telephone operator's office attached to it. That's a little extension there. This type of building, which is a family home attached to a business, is my dream. Over the summer, I almost gave up on it though. Our house in town seemed like it would never sell, and we were of two minds because we are not unhappy here in town. I am not a procrastinator, and living in limbo nearly did my head in. Finally, we decided we were moving regardless of the house in town, and as soon as we made up our minds, things started to happen and our house sold. We will be moving to Brigus October 7th, and I am so excited for this new adventure. I know it will be a lot of work, but my husband and I are the type that love to take on a project. It will be a while before I have anything up and running, but in the meantime, I will be able to keep printing, filling wholesale orders, and taking part in craft fairs. Thank you. My favorite saying, have nothing in your house that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. Live by it.